we not on no negativity from now on, man. We not doing that. I'm just here to be positive, and I don't speak on anything negative, you know. So that's the new wave. That's what we going forward with. Anything negative, we not talking about it. We not speaking on.
I think whatever Kevin Stefanski says is fair because it's Kevin Stefanski's team and it's his process. I also think it's extremely obvious that Kevin Stefanski doesn't mess with Shedeur Sanders the way the outside public believes that he should. When you think about this process, it feels that Kevin Stefanski wasn't ready to draft Shedeur Sanders, and then upon drafting him, he didn't put a plan in place to handle the person. You have to understand with Shedeur Sanders is going to come more media attention, more scrutiny. He's going to be treated unlike anything else in that locker room or anything else we see in the league based on his...
Listen, we're keeping this positive from here on out. No negativity, no drama, just straight facts. I'm here to give you the real story, and I won't sugarcoat it. This is the new approach. If it's negative for the sake of being negative, we're not talking about it. We're moving forward with purpose. Now, I'm not here to judge the Browns' decision. This is entirely a football move, and whatever Kevin Stefanski says goes. It's his team, his process, his call. That's fair. But here's what's also fair to say. It's painfully obvious that Kevin Stefanski doesn't believe in Shedeur Sanders the way the rest of the world does. Think about how this all went down. It feels like Stefanski wasn't ready to draft Shedeur Sanders. And once the front office pulled the trigger anyway, there was no real plan in place to develop him, or even handle the spotlight that comes with him. You have to understand, Shedeur Sanders doesn't walk into a locker room quietly. He brings media attention. He brings scrutiny, he brings cameras, expectations, and pressure unlike anything most rookies face. He's been under the microscope since the day he committed to Colorado, and that intensity has only grown. This time, though, the criticism isn't about his talent or his leadership. It's about the people around him, the ones who are supposed to guide him, protect him, and build him up. Instead, as Ryan Clark made crystal clear on First Take,
Sanders is right there starving and waiting for an opportunity. So I looked at it like that, and I just said to myself, okay, but that's how it goes. You know, Joe Flacco's a veteran. You know, Kevin Stefanski, you know, knows what he's doing as a coach, etc. But then something like this happens. We're supposed to sit here and believe that Bailey Zappe is a guy that's the QB2 on this squad. Really, that's what we're doing now. I just find that to be a bit fishy. And so, you know, Dillon Gabriel obviously is your QB1. He's a guy that has earned the opportunity to do that. Mina pointed out last week accurately so. He had a better performance in the preseason than Shedeur Sanders did. I get that part. Shedeur Sanders played well, albeit
hype, with the pedigree, and yeah, with the name. But what he didn't come in with was a coach who actually wanted him. That last line hit hard. Stefanski didn't want Shedeur drafted. That was a front office move. And when that happens, it's already a setup for failure. You can tell by how they've handled him since day one. Throughout the preseason, Shedeur looked composed, accurate, and confident in every rep he got. Reporters praised his field vision and his maturity under pressure. But even after showing real promise in multiple appearances, he was still stuck behind names that most analysts didn't expect to see holding a clipboard, let alone being listed as QB2. Bailey Zappe? Really? That's when the confusion started. Why was Shedeur Sanders, arguably one of the most naturally gifted rookie passers in the league, not getting second string reps? Ryan Clark connected the dots for everyone watching. This isn't about competition. This is about politics. Stefanski is trying to control a locker room that's already shaky, and the easiest way to do that? Keep the spotlight away from the one player who naturally attracts it. He was talking about Shedeur's presence. Coming from his college days under Deion Sanders at Colorado, Shedeur wasn't just a quarterback, he was a brand. A symbol of a new kind of athlete who understands both the business and the game. His name alone brings cameras, and that spotlight can make some coaches uncomfortable, especially ones who prefer quiet systems and predictable hierarchies. Kevin Stefanski is exactly that type of coach. Stephen A. Smith jumped in, adding even more fuel to the fire. Ryan, I agree with you, brother. Look at how Stefanski runs this team. He's methodical. He's careful, sometimes too careful. You're telling me he's got Shedeur Sanders, a guy who can stretch the field, who can handle pressure, and instead, he's letting him rot on the bench behind a guy who's still figuring out how to throw a slant route that don't make sense. Dan Orlovsky tried to cool things down, suggesting the Browns might be protecting Shedeur from too much early pressure. But Ryan wasn't
Sanders is right there starving and waiting for an opportunity. So I looked at it like that, and I just said to myself, okay, but that's how it goes. You know, Joe Flacco's a veteran. You know, Kevin Stefanski, you know, knows what he's doing as a coach, etc. But then something like this happens. We're supposed to sit here and believe that Bailey Zappe is a guy that's the QB2 on this squad. Really, that's what we're doing now? I just find that to be a bit fishy. And so, you know, Dillon Gabriel obviously is your QB1. He's a guy that has earned the opportunity to do that. Mina pointed out last week, accurately so, he had a better performance in the preseason than Shedeur Sanders did. I get that part. Shedeur Sanders played well, albeit against
coaches moved the offense in practice. The natural next man up should have been Shedeur. Instead, they kept rotating backup names, almost like they were avoiding the inevitable. Fans on social media started calling it what it is, Shedeur suppression. Posts flooded timelines with clips of Shedeur's precise throws during training camp and preseason, compared against clips of Zappe missing open reads. The difference was obvious. Ryan Clark's comment didn't just expose Stefanski's reluctance, it validated the frustration of thousands of fans. If this coaching staff doesn't believe in him, then let him go somewhere that does. Trade him now. Don't waste his time. Don't waste his prime years sitting behind people who aren't even close to his level. That line hit like a thunderbolt. Within hours, social media exploded. Hashtags like hashtag free Shedeur and hashtag let him play started trending. Even former players weighed in. Chad Johnson posted, Ryan Clark spitting facts. You don't
let the week play out, make a decision later on that.
Yeah, I imagine that Stefanski has a long list of things he's got to think long and hard about over there with that squad. But this not knowing the backup QB, is that fair or foul, Stephen A., for Stefanski?
I think it's...
Ryan Clark.
Unless you're scared of the noise he brings. And Deion Sanders himself, though careful with his words, posted a subtle message that fans immediately linked to the controversy. God's plan will always expose what's hidden. In Cleveland, the locker room dynamic has become complicated. Players who bonded with Shedeur during training camp talk about his work ethic and humility. They say he stays late after every session, reviewing film and running footwork drills. But they also admit he's frustrated, not because of the media attention, but because he feels like he hasn't been given a fair shot. A source close to the team told local reporters, Shedeur isn't asking for a crown. He's asking for reps. Meanwhile, the coaching staff continues to downplay the situation, calling it a normal part of competition. But even inside the organization, there are whispers that Stefanski's approach could backfire. One insider put it bluntly, if Stefanski doesn't handle this right, he might lose the locker room. Some of the veterans already think Shedeur deserves a chance. If the coach keeps ignoring what's obvious, it's going to divide the team that Stefanski prefers. But the reality is, the NFL is changing. Quarterbacks today aren't just passers, they're the faces of franchises. And if a coach can't adapt to that, he risks losing both games and locker rooms. Ryan Clark captured this perfectly when he said, Stefanski is trying to coach like it's 2005, but this is 2025. You don't silence players anymore, you empower them. You build around them. In the days following the broadcast, speculation about Shedeur's future in Cleveland grew intense. Sports analysts started listing potential trade destinations. Teams like the Raiders, Patriots, and Falcons, all with shaky quarterback situations, were mentioned as possible landing spots. If the Browns don't make Shedeur the QB too soon, there's a growing belief that his agent might push for an exit. And here's the irony, Cleveland could end up regretting it deeply. Because once Shedeur lands somewhere that actually believes in him, it won't take long for him to prove the critics wrong. He's got the arm, he's got the intelligence, he's got the poise. He's not a raw project, he's a quarterback ready to lead. Ryan Clark's closing line during that first take segment summed it up better than anything else. It posed a culture problem. He reminded everyone that belief, opportunity, and trust matter as much as playbooks and game plans. And when a coach doesn't believe in his young star, that star will find another team that does. So the real question now isn't whether Shedeur Sanders is talented enough to start. Everyone knows he is. The real question is whether the Cleveland Browns are brave enough to admit it. Because if they're not, someone else will be. The next chapter might just be his biggest comeback yet. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more deep dives into NFL controversies and locker room politics, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Because trust me, this story is just getting started.